Would you like an Easter egg? It's a dove.
Oh, I'm so good, thank you. Yesterday, somebody gave me like a big thing of just chocolates, and I was like, I'll have one. I ate the whole bag, so now
Yeah.
I can't have any more chocolate. Thank you so much, Lou.
I did the same thing with my M&Ms yesterday. Like, I'm just gonna have 2 or 3. Kind of go later.
I had so many. They were chocolate carrots. I'm like, I can't even have a real carrot now. I can't look at them. I can't. It was good at the time.
Like, you know, it gives you, like I said, the income. That's the biggest challenge. Nothing. Yes, nothing happened. So if you were the coach, you're getting that meeting down. And also, you know, if you didn't push that yourself, like Joe had looked at my hunger, you know, running movies, my hair, you know, talk to them, and then I was able to get the appointment, get on the Zoom. I did that.
I think Laura's gonna have to reach out to them because I think they were supposed to be here by end of Friday. And I haven't seen them. I checked the mailroom as well. I think she's gonna have to reach out to them.
All right. Yeah, I checked the mailer when you see anything.
Yeah, I haven't seen any business cards or anything, but we'll keep an eye out.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a class right now about it.
It's tomorrow's event, is it on Zoom or we have to
But
go
it's
there
in person.
first?
Yeah.
Yeah, do we have any more cruises from here? So.
No, we're ordering more. Yeah. Yes, of course.
So on local city and then on Jim Park. Said no. Yeah, okay. And then let you know, you can either tomorrow or Thursday for a session and lots of people here.
No, we still have 2 minutes. And then tomorrow's event won't be recorded. Right?
No, I do not think it.
Okay.
Have you signed up for the event tomorrow?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Joseph?
Yeah.
Have you signed up for the event?
Which event?
The NAR settlement thing in Culver City tomorrow?
Oh, can you send it? Did you send it to my email?
I will send it to you.
It's
Sydney's trying to get out of work too.
Hmm?
Sydney's trying to get out of work too.
Okay.
wow. There's an email going out at noon,
Okay, there's an email going out at noon.
and it was in the newsletter as well.
And it was in the news.
So Sandy, you sent it to my email.
Yeah, yeah. Let me double check on MailChimp.
User on here.
Hmm?
User.
No. Oh yeah, just use it.
So I was driving up the hill to my house yesterday. We saw this
Oh my
eagle or this hawk.
gosh. I don't know what it's a big bird.
I think it's like a hawk. It's tagged because there's like a little thing right there on his wing.
Okay.
But he was just hanging out on a light pole like that.
Oh,
That's wild, right?
yeah.
It was just hanging out.
Oh,
He was just, he sat like that for like a really long time. I don't know why.
I'm not sure if it's a good sign or a bad sign.
I know. It's like, that's like from one of those like end of world movies where all the
Yeah.
animals start freaking out and it's like all the hawks do their, I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Yep. You coming in? Come on.
I'll go more important. Huh? Well, I got. Hopefully you would agree. Thank you.
No problem, no problem.
I'm sitting next to the pretty people.
All right, everybody. Okay.
You didn't get it?
Check your spam. Check your spam. All right, how's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
I am fantastic. So we're not gonna do it, watch a video today. I wanna go over some basic principles of, basically just real estate. The basic principles of how can you make $100,000 in the next 12 months? Because I think we complicate things way more than they need to be, and we overthink things. So I wanna kind of go over things at a basic level to illustrate how not difficult it is. It just takes one thing, it takes work ethic, it takes hard work. And so I just wanted to touch base with the people in the room to see, is there any specific issue that you're dealing with that we as a group can mastermind together to solve for you? Is there anything?
Yes.
Yes, what do you have?
The buyer agency contract,
Yep,
I think that it's super overhyped right now with the agents. And half of the public doesn't know, but you're trying to balance, who knows what, and I think it's even making me nervous because you're like, you feel like you want to already explain it, but it's like, some of them aren't even a big deal, and I ran into that this weekend, and I'm like, Tammy, gosh, knock it off. They're like, no, I'm all in. I get it. I explained it to them, so it wasn't that big of a deal. So I think it's just, I would like to work on a really good script that might kind of just not make us verbally vomit all over them, if that even makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, you have all this built up anxiety inside yourself. I know that I do, even as a coach.
Yeah.
And just be calm and collected and cool, and just maybe have like 3 key questions. And I kind of have a couple in my mind, but just kind of see where they're at so you can mirror match. So I think that would be a good thing to talk about, because I think that's top of mind for our agents.
absolutely. And I think that there's 2 ways to look at it, because a lot of agents in the industry right now are being super reactive, right? They're getting all these random questions and different people coming at them, and then they're trying to figure out how to react to the conversations that are hitting them.
Mhm.
So the one thing that I think that we should do as agents is, the first thing is you need to make the concerted effort to go out to your database and initiate the conversation with them first. Call everybody you know, regardless if they want to buy or sell, and you're like, listen, Aunt Jenny is not moving ever. I don't need to call her. That's not true.
Oh, yeah.
Because just because Aunt Jenny's not gonna move, and she's not gonna move, and she is not somebody that's ever gonna be a buyer or seller for you, she might know something. And that's where a majority of business comes for real estate agents. And we overlook that at a very core level. So going to Aunt Jenny and saying, hey, there's been a lot of conversation in the news about real estate agent commissions, lawsuits and settlements and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just talking to everybody I know to make sure that everybody has the right information to see if there's any questions you have. Have you heard about it? And then you get that feedback. And so like, she's like, nope, don't care about that stuff. I'm really good. Say, great. I just wanted to reach out to you to make sure that if you did have a question that I'm here to answer for you. How are you doing? How are the kids? How's your sister? Blah, blah, blah. And then you just do that. And then you move on from that conversation. But what that does is that's, what's not subliminally, that puts that in the back of their mind that you're the authority when it comes to this. So if somebody comes to them and asks them a question, they're like, you know what, you need to talk to Frank because he really knows what he's talking about. He just called me the other day and I didn't really have any questions about it, but if you do, let me connect you guys. That's what that does. That shuts that down. That makes you the authority. If they have to call you, that's now instead of being in a proactive situation, you're now in a reactive situation. You're having to explain something that they heard in the meeting, which 100% of everything I've heard in the media so far has been inaccurate, 100%. I'm sure somebody out there has figured it out and said it the right way, but it's never one of those blanket conversations that you can have because it hits on so many different issues. And we still have, what, 3 or 4 months still? 3 months before it actually takes effect?
3 months.
Yeah,
4 months.
3 months. They still haven't figured it out. And then that's the one thing I would lead with if somebody asked me the question, say, well, first of all, nothing's changed and they haven't figured it out completely yet. And it doesn't happen until July. And so I'm sure things will change before July. That's the first thing I would lead with. Because we are trying to explain it at a core level as if it's a finite thing that it's done, and it's not. Because they still haven't figured out they still haven't figured out VA, FHA, there's a whole bunch of little things that they haven't figured out. I think some FHA guidelines have actually been worked out, but there are some mortgage issues that they have not figured out yet, and there are things that are gonna have to change. So that's the way I would, if somebody brings it to you, to say, first of all, nothing's changed. If something changes, it won't be till July, and there's still some things they have to work out. But this is what I know so far, and then you just basically explain to them. 6% is still 6%. What they call it in the MLS is gonna be different, but it's still the same thing. They're still gonna be able to offer it. And if somebody says, well, I don't wanna pay a buyer agent commission, the best thing to say is, why? Why would it, so, and I always refer to this, like, how easy is it to get your kids to do something if you tell them to do something? The best way is to ask them questions, and it's the same way with your clients. Your clients, at some level, are children. Sorry if your clients are listening to this, I apologize. But it's like, everybody thinks they know, right? Everybody thinks they know better than everybody else. So if you actually know something more so than somebody else, the best way to get to the root of that is to help them self-discover on their own. And the best way to do that is to ask them questions. What have you heard about this settlement? What have you heard about all this stuff? Find out what they know first and then educate them moving forward.
Yeah, and really keep it narrow, because they don't, they might not care about the FH or the VA or the VA thing.
Yeah.
It might be a conventional buyer, so
Yeah.
and that's the mistake that I made, is that I wanted to be the authority figure, and
Yeah.
then after I kind of look back on the conversation, I'm like, you know what? Half of what I said doesn't really even apply to
Yeah.
them. And even though they're like, maybe, okay, she knows what she's talking about, it wasn't necessary, it wasn't. So don't get all caught up in that you need to know everything. If Frank's right, you just try to just really hone in and ask those questions, because some people don't even know. I was talking to my parents and they watch the news all the time. They're retired. And my mom's like, I haven't heard from you for a week. And I'm like, Mom, this NAR settlement, and I got this job and I'm just trying. And she goes, oh, I heard of that. She goes, that is the stupidest thing. That is not true. And I'm like, so you just never know, what the other person's perception is of, depending on what they're watching.
So, you guys know what this is? This is an ice, ooh, who said that? Nice, this is an iceberg, right? The iceberg is very interesting because when you see an iceberg and you're cruising along in a boat and you see a little iceberg over there. If you know icebergs, you know that that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's why they call it that, because everything is under the iceberg. And so like, if this is real estate, this is everything that's happening in the iceberg. So there's NAR, there's drama, there's social media, there's things, there's Russia, there's news, there's people. Like we can just probably sit here for an hour and fill this whole gap up with all the things that are actually happening in our world. That are affecting, like you can put your kids in here, you can put your family in here, I can put my dog that just had surgery in here, I can put my car that got on fire a couple weeks ago, and like I just fill this up on my own, I don't need your guys' help. So, but the problem is that real estate is only up here. There's only two things you need to do when it comes to real estate. Anybody know what that is? So the first thing. Conversation. You're not really selling real estate unless you're having conversations. Because if you're sitting there waiting for your phone to ring, that lead generation strategy is called prayer. Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't. So if you're not actively having conversations, then your real estate business will be slow, it'll be non-existent, it'll be stressful. Stress, forgot that one, that's a really important one, stressful. I don't know what that is. But, so, if you're not having conversations, that means you're not talking to people about real estate, that means people are not talking to you about the houses they wanna see, you know, you can't have a buyer agency conversation to get somebody to sign a buyer agency if you're not having conversations, right? So conversations is the first thing. And the second thing is follow-up. That's it. That's it. You don't really need to do anything else. If you have conversations every day about real estate, because this is what will happen, you're gonna talk to most, like, let's say you talk to 25 people today, randomly, just walk, talk to the dry cleaner, you talk to your sister, you talk to your son, whoever. You have 25 real estate conversations today. Chances are those 25 conversations are going to yield 0 leads. That's the way all real estate conversations work. All real estate conversations. And I think statistically, between 50 and 200 conversations will get you 1 lead. This is a number from a top producer that I've spoken to. Because between 50 and 200, you're gonna talk to all of these people about real estate in a conversation, however you want to structure that conversation. And what's gonna happen is that they're gonna be fine. Because real estate is not an event, it's a process. And people buy and sell for specific reasons. And I think we've talked about this before, like you get a job, you lose a job, you have a baby, you get married, you get divorced, somebody passes away, like there's all these different reasons why people will want to buy or sell a house, right? They hate their house, it's too small, they get rich, they get poor. And so your job is to have these conversations with as many people as possible, just figure out where are they at in their life? Are they ready to move? Do they want to move? Like if you know anybody in your world that's pregnant, right now, I don't know one person that's pregnant that does not want to get a bigger house or need a bigger house. I know somebody that, they got pregnant, they needed a bigger house, looked all around San Fernando Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, didn't like what they saw, decided to move out of state, and Tracy's gonna have a Pasadena listing coming up in June. Because of that, because somebody got pregnant, decided California wasn't for them, and they're moving out of state. It's taken a year and a half for that to happen. We've had this conversation ad nauseum. How are you doing? What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, yeah, well, guess what? We're pregnant. Oh. And we don't wanna raise the kid in California or be in the house that we're in rent. Perfect. They were renting a family home, and the family's like, oh, well, we gotta sell it, and so they're trying to work all that out right now. So the key is you're gonna have all of these conversations, and almost 100% of the conversations on a daily basis, we're good, we're fine, we're not moving. Kids are fine, dogs are fine, job is fine, everything's fine. But then you follow up with them. And when you follow up with them, in 2 weeks, it may not be fine. And if you have a conversation today, and you don't talk to them for 6 months, why would they use you? Ever? You didn't talk to them again, because what happens is, that's called commission breath. There's this weird thing that's happening in real estate to where people want to get a lead, call a lead, close a deal. It's happened. It doesn't happen that often. Right now in this market, it happens very rarely. So the statistic is 750,000 real estate agents did 0 to 1 deal last year. It's a lot of agents. We are the largest trade organization in the United States as realtors. There's 1.5 million agents that are registered as real estate agents. The next largest is lawyers. I think there's 1.3 of them. But we're the largest trade organization out there. And there's this fallacy that people jump into our business thinking they're going to get business right away, when it's really a process. The conversation I had this morning is that I had someone that wanted to join our office, and they wanted me to give them a job as a real estate agent. So imagine if I hired everybody here as a real estate agent. Who would take that job? I'm gonna pay you $20 an hour. Would you take it? He would take, this guy that I talked to, he would, if I said, I will hire you $20 an hour to be a real estate agent in my office, no commission, you just get the hourly wage. Because he said, I need an hourly wage. I go, yeah, I get it. I'll pay you $20 an hour. He would have taken that in a hot second. Would anybody here take that? Come on, lying's the devil, be honest.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes yes. So let's explain that. Because that sometimes yes, there are a whole bunch of people out there that are like, absolutely, I would take that 100 times. I could call this guy back right now and say, hey, I'm hiring $20 an hour, come on in. He'd probably be in before he hung up the phone. But let me show you the contrast in that. So $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, 9 to 5. That's about 40,000 a year, isn't it? $20 an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Taxes, yeah.
40K a year. I think they just changed something to where that's like the new salary for like
Yeah, that's
McDonald's.
the reason why I know it. My 16-year-old's like, that's 40 grand a year flipping burgers.
Yeah, and so just so you know, that new law that California just passed, because they are amazing at finances and they're amazing mathematicians and amazing business people. That was very sarcastic. Your burger prices are gonna go up, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of people that used to have fast food jobs who are not gonna have fast food jobs anymore. That's just economics. You can't force wages higher when the math does the math. So that's what's gonna happen. But let's say I hire this guy, $20 an hour, come on in. This is what I would have him do. He'd have to be here from 9 to 5, every day, Monday through Friday. And I would pay him overtime on Saturday and Sunday if I decided to have him work on Saturday and Sunday, but I probably wouldn't have to. If he was late, he'd get 3 warnings and then I'd have to let him go. Immediately. No questions asked, no emotion. This is just the way it is. So 9 to 5, can't be late. You can miss so many days. There's no sick time. You know, we figured that part out. I don't know. I'd probably have to do sick time. Yeah, I'd probably have to do sick time. So anyway, so I have to do sick time. So I'll give him sick time. But you would have to sit at your desk, upload everybody you know in your database to my database. You'd have to upload all of those people. And then every day you would have to talk to everybody in your people. I would have you talk to 50 people a day. And you would have a specific conversation. Basically the 4th conversation. And then I'd have you record yourself. And the last hour of every day, we would go over the recording and we would talk about how you can talk to your people better. And so this would be, bless you. This is 300 people. So if you come in and you're like, listen, I want the job, 20 bucks an hour, all you know, like 100 people, great. So your orientation is you and I sitting down and figuring out where your 300 people are, because we all know 300 people. The key is, you only say you know 100 people because the other 200 people you just don't want to talk to. Like, oh, let's go back to high school and see who you remember from high school. I don't want to talk to that guy. So real estate is all about, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to make phone calls? Are you willing to door knock? Are you willing to call the people you know? Are you willing to walk down the street and meet random people? There's a really cool lead generation strategy that I have not seen anybody do yet. Anybody see the TikTok or Instagram videos where there's the man on the street interview and somebody walks around and interviews people? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Why isn't every real estate agent on the planet doing that to get leads? Think of a question to ask people and do a man. So many people would actually want to stop to be part of one of those videos because it's cool. There was a guy in New York City that was doing it. And what was his question? I don't remember what he was asking people, but he was walking around asking, he was a brand new agent, never closed a deal before. He walked around asking people, what do you do? Where do you live? All of these different things. And he ended up coming across a broker of a very large real estate firm in New York City, and the guy hired him. And now he's making a lot of money. But all he did, that's a great way to meet people. I mean, you literally go out here in the Wilshire corridor and stand in the corner and start asking people questions. Like, do you live here? Like, do you own a house? Like, how much money do you, like, what's the guy that walks around and sees somebody in an expensive car? And he's like, you drive a G-Wagon. Like, what do you do to drive a G-Wagon? My friend Eric Delgado just got interviewed. You know Eric Delgado?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, he got interviewed. He's like, I own a real estate brokerage. He's like, oh, really? How much? And so this, I didn't know this. He's like, how much money did you make, in real estate in your best year? He's like, that was last year and it was $8 million. I was like, what? I'm slipping.
No.
Because I've been in business longer than him, but it's like, literally, that's a way to actually create conversations and people. So I would hire you, I would make you call 50 people a day, I would go over your scripts and dialogue with you, and then when you got a lead, you would send it to me and I would go out on the appointment and I would close the deal. And then one deal is about, so the average sale, let's say it's $800,000. Because the average sale, the average price in real estate in this area is $1 million, in San Fernando Valley is $1 million, in Santa Clarita it's like 8, coming up on 900,000, which is a little crazy. So 2.5% of 800,000, let's see. 20,000, that was easy math. So that's $20,000. Let's say I have an 80-20 split, so that's so I get $16,000. Roughly. So I get $16,000 on one deal. So do you see how this would be more lucrative for me than it would be for the person making the $20 an hour? So if you got a lead very quickly, which I can almost guarantee you would if you made enough phone calls, I would say, so if you did this $50 a day, 50 to 200 gets you one lead. That means, let's say it takes you 200, so that's 4 days. I get a lead and I make 16K. So if that happened, I would say, okay, guess what? Now I need you to make 100 calls a day. 9 to 5, I'd have you come in. That's what I'd have you do. I'd make sure you're saying the right things. And then if this math works correctly, I should be able to do about 18 deals a year. That's on the low end. That's on the low end if you do enough lead generation. So 20,000 times 18, I don't know what that is. 20,000 times 18. $360,000 a year. Even if I made $100,000, that's a bonus for me because I'm making $60,000 more than what I'm paying that person. Even if it's 100K. I know for a fact I could do that. My risk is that I have to put up the $20 an hour on the front end, and there'd be a 90-day probationary period where if things didn't work out in 90 days, we both have the option to say, thank you, have a nice day. I can guarantee you that if we did this, you would get a deal before the 90 days was up. But it comes back to conversations and the follow-up, because once you talk to everybody, they would go into a follow-up filter in my database, and then you would do certain things over a period of time, follow up aggressively, way more aggressive than you probably ever could even think of. My follow-up program right now for the team is about 65 touches a year. So one person in my database gets touched 65 times. Which normal people, we go, oh, that's so much. For who? Who is that a lot for? Because I'm not calling them every day going, do you want to buy yourself? Do you want to buy yourself? Do you want to buy yourself? That 65 times would be highly aggressive and I would deserve to be blocked. But I'm not. I'm calling people, hey, how are you doing? How's it going? Here's a birthday card. Happy birthday. Home anniversary. Here's this. You want to come to an event? Just constantly giving value. That's the difference. It's aggressive when you're not giving value. When you're giving value, people will stay engaged. It's been proven that if somebody subscribes to you and you don't send out something for like a month, there's a higher unsubscribe rate to where if you subscribe to them and you send them something immediately and constantly and ad nauseam, just craziness. That's been proven. That's scientific at some level, I guess. So the key is that if you wanted to do this for your business, you would go and comb everything you have to figure out how many people you know and who you know and put them in your database, just like I would. So what I would say is like, why don't you start out your own little small business and hire your first employee? Your first employee is you. Pay yourself $20 an hour and do that for yourself. Does that make sense? Or am I talking crazy? And then figure out, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to call everybody you know, even if you don't like them? Even like, let's say there's a bully in high school, right, that you didn't like. Well, I'm 53. That bully probably doesn't even remember being a bully, and I could probably reach out to him right now. Hey, I'm Frank from Rancho. Do you remember me? Oh yeah, blah blah blah. What are you doing? And catch up. I have done that with so many people. I'm like, hey, does your mom still own that house over on Civic Center Drive? Oh yeah, we have it. I'm moving over there, I'm renovating, and I use it as a rental right now. That's amazing. Now I have somebody that I know that has a property in Vegas that at some point, if he wants to sell, I'm his guy. Because I grew up with them, and I just happened to reach out to him. Does that make sense? So the key is first conversations, convo to follow up. After you can get that basic framework down, it's really, really super easy. All the other stuff is like the potatoes with the steak. It's an accoutrement. It's like a little side dish. So the social media, which I think you need if you want credibility, especially if you haven't sold a lot of properties. If you want credibility, you put together the top 3 social media platforms for real estate agents, which I believe are Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's the basic platform for the agents that are like, I don't like or do social media. Yeah, that's great. If you owned a business, you'd want more people to know about your business, and you really are scared of the social media monster, then you would do those 3 at the highest level you could possibly do. That gets your name out there. So you go on there and you post about things. So the things you post about are not what you think. The things you post about are what I call the 80-20 rule. So 80-20 when you're posting to social media, does anybody know what the 80 is, and does anybody know what the 20 is?
Probably 80 relatable things and 20 real estate related. Yep, people.
Exactly. So 80 is personal. 20 is business. Because you want people to know you, like you, and trust you. So the way you do that is that people want to work with people that are like them, like your best friend. Like, what is your best friend like about you? And like, what is that thing that Ryan Serhant says? Nobody wants to be sold, but people like shopping with friends. Like, so like if somebody becomes your friend, it's easy to take them out to show them properties and so on and so forth. So you want to be relatable. You want people to like not think that you're all business, but you also want to sprinkle some of that in there. So more personal stuff you can put on there is going to get people like, oh, they have a dog too. Oh, they have the, I cannot tell you how many times that I have agents that have joined the office, joined my coaching programs, that they initially started off with, oh my God, I like that too, or I have a dog too, or I have this too. It's like they connected themselves to me through the personal posts that I've done. And this is a stretch, but on Instagram and Facebook, if you can do video, that makes the relatable part so much easier because people get to hear your cadence in your voice, see what type of personality you really have, to see that like, yeah, it's hard. Like if you get in front of the camera and it's uncomfortable, that's relatable because most people are uncomfortable in front of the camera. Not everybody's Mr. Beast that have figured it out over a 15-year period of time. So if you can do personal and business 80-20 on social media, that's going to give you credibility even if you've never sold a property. If you're talking about the average sale price, talking about things that are factual, and then like you share somebody's listing in the office. So like we post things and you share, our office just listed this, or we just sold that, or da 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 da, we, the royal we. That gives you credibility, and a lot of people don't know the difference. They don't know the difference between what you've done, what the office has done. They don't get it. So if you can be relatable and share the business things that like people are going to contact you like, wow, you're really crushing it on, in real estate when you really haven't really sold anything lately, but if it's the perception of what you're looking for. And this is the other key is, every day I have a Google search. So you can do Google alert and type in certain things for Google alerts. And every time that pops up anywhere on the internet within Google, it'll send you a message of what they're talking about. So like I have my name. So if somebody speaks my name in social media, any place in Google, I get an alert. That person said Frank. So I didn't realize that there's other Frank Bernardos out there, which is super weird to me, but there are other Frank Bernardos out there, but I find out what they're talking about and who they are. But I also find out about foreclosures and certain things with California. Like I have certain things set up. So I get like a link sent to me every morning and I click on it. It has all of these articles that have been talked about based on the alert that I created. And I get my education first thing in the morning. So I'm driving to work. I don't get a call. Say, hey, did you hear about, or did you know about? Because that's what gives you credibility as well, is that if you, excuse my language, if you know your shit and people call you and you talk to them and you can just say, like, you just know it, that gives you massive credibility. Especially if you're younger. If you're younger, people will look at you in a different way if you're young and know your shit. That's just, I wish it was different because I'm old and I know my shit. It's a little different. But industry news is really, really important to stay up on that because the last thing you want is to do step one to where you're calling everybody and having these conversations and you're following up and somebody goes, hey, did you know about blah, blah, blah? You're like, let me get back to you. Hold on. So if you're having these, and this is the thing, if you're having enough conversations on a daily basis, you're naturally, so you're going to run into something like that. It's going to happen. And all you can do is like, let me get back to you. And then if you're having enough conversations on the front end, you will get enough information to where you'll be able to talk about things like this and that. People say things to me all the time that I don't know about, but I have been doing this for so long that I almost have a script for everything. So like, there's nothing that anybody can stump me with. And it's funny because sometimes like Tracy and I'll be in an appointment and somebody will say something and she'll look at me first. Because I typically will be able to answer someone. If I don't know the answer, I know what to say to let them know that I am a professional. I don't know the answer, but I can get the answer for them. And it's just, it all depends on the situation. Every situation is different. The way you become valuable in every type of different situations is you have to put yourself out there more. It's exposure. You expose yourself to enough conversations that have to do with real estate, you'll become a natural about talking about real estate. Does that make sense? So, and a lot of this is all just mindset. Getting over the social media anxiety, getting over the video anxiety, getting over posting, all of that, it's just mindset. And you have to realize that, like, how many times, like, does anybody watch TV shows? Anybody see that, it's on Peacock, it's called The Apple Doesn't Fall Far from the Tree or something like that, has Annette Bening in it, it's really good. But I guess if you don't have a certain subscription level, which I guess I don't have, that there's commercials. The amount of commercials were insane, and the amount of the same commercials were insane. And it's just like, they're not, it's off the track, that's what it's doing. If, the amount of commercials were way more than a 65 touch program that I've ever seen. And it's like, they don't care about how many times they're telling you that. Does that make sense? So it's really about getting out of your mindset about posting more or posting enough. You've been posting a lot, which is really good. But I'd almost say if you're comfortable, like amp it up even more.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I had a wake-up call this weekend because, from the weekend for about a year and a half. I said, and, sent a little gift with a little dog, a Shih Tzu.
Yeah.
Said, I can sell your house quick something. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, well, he's like, what do you mean sell? I was like, well, Sydney and I are realtors. He's like, I didn't know that. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt like shit about it the past 2 days. So I'm making a more conscious effort to, I mean, that's like my name. I was a secret agent.
Most people are. Like, if you pull out your 300 people that you know, like how many people know and how many people don't know that you're a real estate agent? And this is what happens, we assume everybody knows. We assume everybody knows. And when I first started in real estate, when 2008 happened, a whole bunch of people got out of the business. Real estate was crazy. I ran into somebody at Target on Corbin, I'll never forget it. And I was like, hey, how's it going? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what are you doing? She was like, we're getting some things for my new house. We sold our house. I'm like, what? You sold? She said, yeah, we sold our house and we bought another house and blah, blah. I go, oh my God. I said, I'm in real estate. Had no idea. She goes, oh, I didn't know you were still in real estate. I didn't know you were still in real estate. That's because people listen to the media. If you don't talk to them enough, it's not their job to remember. It's your job to remind them. So the more conversations you can have with your people to make sure that they know and constantly know, like, are you following everybody on social media? Are you finding out what they like? Like to do, there's a coach out there that does pop-by gifts. And to randomly pick somebody from your sphere that's like, oh yeah, that guy really likes the Jets. And so you go buy something that has to do with the Jets and say, hey, I was out of the store and I thought about you, and send it to them. That creates so much value with somebody. You have no idea. So this is all mindset. This is online presence. And then this is the first step. And the second step is lead generation. And so lead generation is just literally how many people are you willing to talk to on a daily basis? So if we were in a one-on-one coaching program, not in a group coaching session, my conversation to you would be like, do you have all this set up? Are all your people in your database? If you're like, no to any of that stuff, we would stop the session. That would happen. And then we would have the next session. And I'd say, is that done? If you said no, we would end the session. So that session would be like 30 seconds. And then you would go work on that. So you'd have like a whole week to like put this together. It literally takes a day. It takes a day. So we actually had an agent come here and he's like, I want to coach with you. I'm like, you don't want to coach with me. He's like, no, I'm really hard. I'm gonna get you results, but I'm really hard. I don't think it's for you. I want to coach with you. Okay, fine. This is what I need to do. I need to get all your people in your database, and you set up your social media things, and then we're gonna meet on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Great. You showed up Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Did you get everybody in your database? Nope, okay. Go do that, come back to me next week. He's like, what? Yeah. Nothing I can tell you is gonna help you if your people are not in your database. And then all the things that I'm gonna tell you to do, if you don't have the online thing set up, nothing I can tell you is gonna help you. Go do that and come back. He literally messaged me like 17 times in a week, asking me a whole bunch of questions about something that had nothing to do with what I told him to do. Showed up the next week, same thing. So we're like 3 weeks in, and he comes to me and he goes, I think I wanna go mentor with somebody else. I'm like, why, what's wrong? He's like, you're too hard. I go, I'm not really hard, I'm just being realistic, and I'm holding you accountable so you can get the results that you want. He's like, well, but I think this person's gonna be better for me. I go, no. Told you. So that's the step one, is getting that happening. The lead generation part is how many conversations, so if I were able to make it past that part with that person, after that's set up, after everybody's in the database, my next question to the person is, how many people are you willing to talk to every day? And then you have to give me a number. I have a low number that I'm thinking of, but I'm not saying it first. And so I get you to tell me a number, and then what I do is I talk you past the low number that I'm thinking of. And then we have a quick role play on how the conversation goes, because it's not a super hard conversation. You don't even talk about real estate in the conversation in the script I give you. You're really just checking in to see where they're at in their business. And then the follow-up is every week is how many times have you had that conversation? And then if you're not having the conversation enough, or you're not getting any feedback or results, I have you record yourself and you bring the recording back to me so I can hear what you're saying and how you're saying it. And then we coach on that. And then after that, that's it. That's it for lead generation. Number 3 is the follow-up. Because after you talk to somebody, something should happen. And you say, hey, it's really great talking to you. I hope you have a fantastic day. Click. Something should happen after that. I say a handwritten note. It was really great talking to you. Today, I just wanted to blah, blah, blah. And you put a little personal note in there and you pop that in the mail. Yes, it's a stamp. Yes, it costs a little bit of money, but it creates so much value because you just got off the phone with them. It's very easy for that conversation to go away. And then 2 days later, they get something in the mail, and then they get a Facebook post, and then they get a follow-up, and then they get an invite. So it's a very, very aggressive thing to where you're just constantly touching somebody. So nobody will ever, 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 ever be able to say, oh my God, I didn't know you were posting. Because it literally gets 65 things a year. And so that's a constant reminder. You can I can pull up businesses right now that do way more than 65 that just blow you up, like Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. is like notorious for their commercials. Like they just blast you with commercials. TV commercials are, in my opinion, are so expensive, but they get the job done. What was it, $7 million for a Super Bowl ad? Liquid Death is a water. Maybe it isn't Liquid Death. They did a marketing campaign because they didn't want to pay $7 million for the Super Bowl ad. They advertised, they said, hey, if you want to give us $500,000, we're going to give you ad space in our thing in all of our grocery stores, which is going to get like 700. They had some statistics, like 200 million people go through these places, and they did this whole ad where it was like massively aggressive, and they just thought outside the box. So think about, go through your list of everybody that you know and see how many people have you not talked to since you've been a real estate agent? And how many people do you know for 100% fact are not 100% sure that if you're a real estate agent or not? And it's your job to remind them. And if you're new, how long have you been licensed? November? So have you called everybody and said, hey, I just joined Keller Williams, blah, 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 blah. So you're not asking them to buy or sell, you're telling them about a really cool thing that you just did. And that's all you have to do. Because, and this is what'll happen, if you call people, you go, hey, I just did something really cool, I'm just telling everybody I know, I just joined Keller Williams because I was licensed back in November, I haven't really done anything, but I just wanted to let you know. You're gonna get somebody who goes, oh, that's great, I'm not thinking about buying or selling right now. No, that's cool, I didn't ask, right? But they're gonna say that, happens all the time. But the key is that you don't ask, you back off, and you just make sure that they know, and then you have a lot of conversations after that. Thoughts or questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
because 65 touches is only averages out to like once a week. So if you just reach out like once a week.
Yeah. Well, and the core of the phone call, it used to be back in the day when it was this way when I started 21 years ago. Whoa. 21 years ago, it was like you have to keep in touch with your database and call them once a quarter. Just once every 3 months. No, that is too far away. Too far away. With the way things have advanced, with the internet, with the pandemic, with all of these things, it's sped things up to where you have to talk to them more. And if you're like, well, I just talked to this guy last month, I don't know what to talk to him about this month. That's what your social media is for. Go on their social media. What are they doing? Did they take a vacation? Did they do something fun? What did they do? Go on their social media and have these conversations and say, hey, I just saw that you went to Havasu. I haven't been there forever. And just create a conversation out of thin air. If you're like, well, I can't find this person's social media. Okay, call them. Hey, I'm on Facebook. I didn't know if you were on Facebook or not. I was just looking for it. I couldn't find you. Are you on Facebook? The video of that agent being interviewed, I thought of somebody and I'm like, hey, I want to send this to this one team leader out of state because he knows the person that I know. I don't know if he's on social media. So I call him, hey, are you on social media? And it's a touch. So if he has a referral, he's going to think of me. And you do that with your people. There's probably a grip of people out there that you know that are not on social media. And so the best conversation is, hey, I was just looking for you on Instagram. I didn't find you. Do you have are you on Instagram? And then guess what they're going to do? They're going to give you a whole conversation of why they don't like social media, why they don't like Instagram. That's great. Well, if I wanted to send you something, what's the best way for me to send you something? Oh, I have an email. Okay, great. I'll send you the email. Because I saw something on there and I was thinking of you. And I wanted to send you, like, there's so many different ways to have conversations. We have to go back to what are you willing to do and how consistent can you be? So if 50 to 200 gets you one lead, that was her. You know what that is. Gets you one lead. How many leads do you need to close a deal? In this market, I would say not many. Because once you find somebody that's interested, it's really just about keeping in contact with them because everybody on the planet is going to buy, sell, or rent. Everybody. Everybody. And I would say, this is my personal opinion. I haven't heard this from anybody. My personal opinion, the biggest opportunity out there for right now in real estate is renters. Because they don't know. They're renting because they don't know. They're renting for, why do people rent? Give me some reasons. Anybody? Give me reasons why people would rent and not own.
I think they don't qualify for a loan.
They think they don't qualify for, what's the key word in that sentence?
And I know
They think.
client that doesn't want to spend all his savings to put in the house.
Right, so they think they can't afford, that means they don't know, and that's where you can help them. He doesn't want to, what was the wording?
His savings into a down payment,
He-
because that's all he has.
So now that is mindset. Why is that mindset? Because he has it in savings, which is gaining how much interest? I mean, interest in savings accounts have gone up a little bit, but not even close to real estate. So that's a mindset issue to where you have to have a conversation with them to say, listen, you're not losing your money. So actually, I had this conversation one time. I had a lady that was like, I want to buy a condo in this 6 square block area. I was like, what? This was like 2009 when there was short sales. It was kind of crazy. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to find something in this square block area. I literally went to dinner with another real estate agent and his assistant said, hey, I think Frank's looking for something in Sherman Oaks. Don't you have something coming up in Sherman Oaks? And he's like, yeah, I do. It's a short sale. It's for $300,000. I said, really? I go, that's our price range. We literally had a conversation. I showed the property twice because the first time I walked in with my buyer, and I'm like, this is it. This is this person's property. We walk around, we get in the car, we start to drive away. I go, what do you think? Thinking I had it in the bag. She's like, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? It was really cluttered. I went, okay, but that's not your stuff. That's their stuff. That stuff's leaving with them. So like, if you took the clutter out, like, would you buy it? He's like, I don't know. It was really busy. So I literally dropped the person off, called my friend, Ryan, and I'm like, Ryan, I'm gonna figure out how to show this again, and you need to get them to clean this, like, clean it up now. Like, he's like, oh my God, I'm really sorry. Da, 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 da. Week later, I'm like, is it cleaned up? He's like, it's cleaned up. I said, okay, bring her back. We walk in, she walks around. She's like, I'm in. Let's go have a drink first. So we walked down the block. It was actually, this is what I did. This is what I did. Because she didn't want to see it again. I called her best friend. And I'm like, I need you to get her to come see it again. And so like I was in cahoots with the best friend. And so me, the best friend, and her went to go see the property. We saw the property. And then she wanted to go down the street and have a drink with her best friend. So we're sitting there. I'm not drinking. I'm just sitting there. And she's sitting there sipping a drink. And I'm like, what are you thinking? She's like, I'm mentally parting with my money. And I went, oh. I'm like, you know you're not parting with your money, right? And she's like, what do you mean? I go, no, this money, the $60,000 that you're putting into the property, it's gonna go into the property, and now it's going from wherever it's at to its new home, which is gonna help it make babies and grow, right? Because you have an interest rate in the bank account that it's at right now, right? Was it like 2%? 0.002% or something like that? I said, it's gonna go somewhere where it's gonna grow by like 5 to 10%. I mean, that sounds like a better thing, right? I said, so you're actually just trading up with an asset, something that's gonna grow in value over time. I said, but this is the funny thing, is that the 5 to 10% is not gonna grow on the 60,000. The 5 to 10% is gonna grow on the 300,000. That's the conversation to have with that person. To say, listen, you have, how much money is in the bank, do you know?
I guess the down payment was something around $150,000.
So what's that down payment on? How much of a house?
I would say $600,000 condominium.
So everybody is different, so I can give you a script, but the conversation she has with that person is gonna be different. So if it's $600,000, $150,000 down. So this is getting 0.005% interest rate sitting in the bank. So that person is getting 0.005 interest rate on $150,000, right? So the cool thing is that if you know how to have the conversation, that you're gonna take this, put that into here, and you're gonna have a mortgage of $450,000, right? So now that's your mortgage, which you still have that, it's just here, but now you're gonna get 5 to 10% interest on 600,000, which means you're not growing that money, you're growing that money, which you're gonna actually double that in a very short amount of time compared to just sitting where it's at. So you're gonna have a 450 mortgage, and what's 5% of 600,000? It's like 30 grand a year. What is that compared to that? So that's the conversation to have, is to get them to see that difference, because that's just the mindset. So when somebody's renting, most people that are renting right now, they say, oh, I can't afford it, which means they don't know if they can or not. And the best thing to do is to have a conversation with them, because they can't afford it either because they don't make enough money or because they have bad credit. So if they don't make enough money, that's a savings conversation, right? You have to figure out how to do the latte effect and save a few dollars here or there and like figure that out and help them with that. And a lot of times it's bad credit. And credit is really so easy to figure out. It took me a divorce to figure it out, but it's really easy to figure out because it's really just math. And people think it's worse than it actually is. And then there's people out there that think they have $150,000 sitting in the bank, that's better than actually buying a property. Because there is some value to renting. So I don't want to poo-poo all over renting. But I mean, if you really want to grow your wealth, you know, interest rate conversation is like what, 7.25%? something like that, interest rate on rental is 100%. I mean, that's just, math. That make sense? Questions? I said a lot today.
Just a quick one.
Yes,
So I had this person say, well, what goes up must come down, so the market's going to crash. And I was like, well, no, not necessarily. Well, do you remember what happened in 08? How do you
Yep.
even counter that?
how would I handle that?
Yeah,
I would say that's a really good point. If you would have bought the most expensive property that was sitting on the market for over a year in 08, you'd have over $1 million. Because there's always fluctuations in the market, but it has always gone up. There's a housing shortage. So there's more demand than there is need. So if you bought it and sold it in a year, you'd make money. A little bit of money, probably not worth selling it, but it's the best place to put your money. And out of everybody in the world who is rich, that's where a lot of them keep all of their money, is in real estate, because real estate is something that's needed. And if they built 5 million homes a year for the next 10 years, they still wouldn't catch up to how much we're short. Anybody who sold at the bottom or at the top over 10 years ago and rent, they lost on hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the things that I tell people that are looking to buy right now, I go, are you guys thinking about having kids? And I said, if you buy a house right now, and you just hold on to this house and you pay your mortgage every year, by the time that person's ready to go to college, you'll have college paid for with your house. That again is just math. So good question. But it's like, you have to have that conversation and you have to fall on your face with it and have it a couple of times before it just becomes natural and rolls off your tongue. Does that make sense? Other questions, other thoughts?
Granita was asking about lead generation. Do
Yep.
I add people who are homeowners or anybody who I know?
Anybody you know, because if they're not homeowners, they could be homeowners. And they should be homeowners. And it's just anybody on the planet should be in your database that you know, and you should be getting people in your database on a daily basis. They don't have to be homeowners. They own some, because I think this is the part where everybody messes it up. The person that's in your database doesn't necessarily have to be a homeowner or anything, because your database is a database of advocates for you, and that's what you should be doing on a daily basis, talking to people, creating advocates. Because there's a whole bunch of people that are going to that you're going to talk to, and they're going to talk to people you don't know, and they're going to refer that business back to you. Happens every day, all the time. A conversation, I was driving in the car with Tracy, and she gets a phone call and she puts it on speaker, and it's a lady from her farm area that she's never worked with, who bought her house with a different agent, called her and said, hey, my son just got married, went out to look at properties with his wife with some random agent from Zillow. And I told him, you absolutely cannot do that. You have to use Tracy. So I'm giving him your information, you're his information, and we're going to connect you guys to get you to make sure he gets into a property. And he hung up. I'm like, who is that? She's like, oh yeah, she lives in the neighborhood. I've never worked with her. She's used a different agent in the past. I said, so through your marketing, your follow-ups, and your conversations, that she's now referring you to people who don't know who was her family, and she's never used you. So she created an advocate with that person, and now she's like, my son will only use you. I'm like, that's incredible. Literally closed the deal in 30 days. Like, that's probably one of the faster deals I've seen actually happen.
Right.
Yes,
I got a quick question.
yes,
Going back to the NAR settlement.
yep.
So when the buyers trust, does he have to pay the money upfront
No.
first, or they add to the loan?
No, it's probably going to be, has to be paid before the close of escrow.
So how does he pay?
Or
Straight up
is this-
cash, or can it before escrow closes?
Well,
So it can be added to the loan?
that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
In some cases, it may be, but they're gonna have to change something. That's why I said when Tammy was talking about how to explain it to people, there's parts of it that are gonna change, and they haven't made certain things clear. Because like with FHA and VA, like there's certain things you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and they haven't figured that out yet. We can speculate all day long, it could be this, it could be that, but I mean, they haven't figured it out. They still have 3 months. So,
They haven't figured it out.
yeah, so like right now, if somebody asks, you say, no, nothing's changed. It's the way it's always been.
But sorry if I don't really understand. A lot of people don't have the money up front.
They don't need it right now.
I know when it comes in 3 months.
Mhm.
I'm talking, you know, I.
So if somebody doesn't have it up front, if the buyer doesn't have the money to pay commission and the seller's not willing to offer it. If you could afford a $500,000 house. Right?
Yeah.
And you have 20% down, which is $100,000. Right? You gotta take a piece out of this to pay you.
So that's 100,000 down, right?
That's a 20% down payment. So if you have a 20% down payment, you have to work with the lender to figure out how you may be able to take a piece of that payment to pay, or there's some people that because of this, they're gonna be priced out of the market. There's probably like 10 different scenarios that we could probably come up with right now.
A lot of times, on the day of closing of escrow, something happens and
Yep.
cancels.
Yep,
So it doesn't make sense that buyer pays up in front even few days earlier.
would have to be before the close of escrow.
Then
So,
it cancels,
Well, then
then
everybody gets their money back.
so it can't be added to the loan?
They haven't figured that out yet. In some cases. So you can actually, so one of the things you can do is that you can put you can have the seller pay the commission and put it on top of the price of the property. So if it's $500,000 property, put $530,000. Now you have an appraisal issue maybe. So I mean, there's a lot, like I said, there's like 10 or 15 different ways that we could probably think of, but they still haven't figured things out yet for the entire situation.
Right.
So once I'm gonna say the mid-June, it'll be 100% locked in on how it's gonna work, and I can guarantee you some things will change a little bit.
Thank
But I wouldn't worry about it right now. The problem I see right now is so many agents are worried about what's happening in July, that they're not focusing on business now.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about that.
Why? You should be worried about the clients you have right now and the deal you can close before July.
Yes, but a lot of people are not in a rush. You get what I'm trying to say?
Well, then find more people.
Yeah.
The biggest problem real estate agents have is they worry about the deal they have, and they don't have enough business to not worry about the deal they have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that if you have one deal and it's stressing you out and you're freaking out about it, that's only happening because you don't have enough business. If you had 25 deals going on and one deal was blowing up and going sideways, you'd be like, all right, move on.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. That's what I was anxious about. 3, 4 months, that's what I've been thinking about.
No, you need to stop doing that because it's just not gonna serve you. And the same thing back to piggyback on the, keep working on building that pipeline.
Yeah.
So when you run into a situation where they're not paying the buyer's commission, it's just gonna happen to us. We're gonna just have to lose some deals. I mean, if the money's not there to pay us, I don't want to spend any more time on the deal. You're gonna have to let your buyer know, you're gonna have to pay up, or we're gonna have to only see properties that are offering, and it's a difficult conversation to have, but that's our reality.
That there are going to be weak agents out there who are not going to offer a buyer commission. It's just gonna happen. And they're gonna either find out through a very difficult process that that's something they're gonna have to do, or they're gonna end up getting out of business.
Thank you for answering that question.
Absolutely. So I'd say at some point, like, if they're not offering a buyer agent commission, like, they're going to, like, to me, it's a very easy conversation. Like, how much do you want your home sold? How much do you want your home shown? Do you want me to just show it to the people I know, or do you want the 10,000 agents that are part of the board that I'm in to show it? Because that's what that is. Like, you're paying for exposure because you want the most amount of money, and you want multiple offers, you want it to go over asking price, right?
Yes.
So then why wouldn't you offer that? Because the funny thing is the NAR lawsuit, if you read it, one of the sellers that is part of that lawsuit actually sold their house, got over asking in multiple offers. Right? It didn't make sense to me. Like, you're suing because you got multiple offers, you got more than you wanted for your property. And you have to have that conversation, and there's gonna be weak agents out there that are not able to have that conversation, and it's gonna be what it is. So,
Thank you for.
No problem.
Something else that nobody else is really talking about, that's an option, because I'm always thinking, okay, what's our options? Okay, I've got a $500,000 buyer. No buyer agent.
I should probably make that 8,000 be more realistic because there's
Oh,
not a lot of $500,000 homes out there.
You know, and I know that they don't have the money to pay me on that, and I've explained everything to them, right? But lo and behold, they drive by an open house.
Yep.
Listed, no buyer agent compensation. Now, I have them under buyer broker, so it's still my client, right? Even though they walked into an open house, it doesn't matter. There's an opportunity there to still, you know, write the offer, see if they'll pay, and the seller says no. Talk with the listing agent, see if you can get a 35% referral. I mean, at that point, right, Frank?
Right, so what
I mean, it's not 3% or whatever, but I mean, I think that that's, you know, better than nothing.
one of the things that I think are gonna be valuable is that this is something I'm gonna look into doing with Tracy, is to get a sign writer for your sign that says 3% concession offered. Or 2.5% concession offered, or put something, because you can't put it in the MLS. But you can put it anywhere else. You can put it in email, you can put it in a text message, you can do a phone call, you can put it on the sign. That's something I think would be super valuable, because now there's no question of, is there compensation offered for the buyer? Because the last thing you want to do as an agent is have to answer your phone, hey, are you giving, you know, compensation, does my buyer have to pay? Oh, we're not giving any. Okay, thanks, move on.
That's a whole nother listing agent I hear.
Yeah, and so I think it's good, there's parts of it that are gonna be kind of a train wreck, in my opinion, but I also think it's gonna weed out a lot of people. So, my question to you is, how many people are you willing to call? To make sure everybody you know in your world knows that you're still a real estate agent. And if you're wondering how to, it's the last thing, we're gonna end on this, is the best way to find out if they know you're a real estate agent, ask them what they do and how their job's doing. How's your job? Are you still working over there at JPL? Like, you know, you're doing like rocket ships and stuff, like, are you still doing that? Like, are you still an engineer? Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Reciprocity will kick in and it'll be like, well, how's your job? Well, I don't know if you knew, but I work at Keller Williams and blah, blah, blah. And reciprocity, if you ask them enough questions about themselves, it'll get uncomfortable enough where they're gonna ask you questions about you. And that way you never have to talk about real estate. They'll ask you. All right, let's play the last video and get out of here.
When we're laying on our deathbed, you're not going to worry about how much money you had, how much power you had, how much prestige. You're going to see that that was all game, that that was all an illusion. The only thing that's going to matter is the impact you had on other people's lives.
We are all on a separate journey. But the beautiful thing about our life here on this earth is at my funeral, they ain't gonna talk about my success. They're gonna talk about who Nick was and how Nick lived and how Nick loved and encouraged.
Success is incredibly important, but even more important than success, it's having an impact. It's knowing you haven't walked the planet in vain. It's knowing that because you've been here, you've blessed lives, you've developed people, and you have made the world a better place.
The effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Everything you gain in life will rot and fall apart, and all that will be left of you is what was in your heart.
Life is a mirror. And life gives us not what we want. Life gives us who we are. When you were born, you cried while the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way that when you die, the world cries while you rejoice.
Thank you, guys. Hope everybody had a great day.
Thank you.
How was that?
It was good. I have some very